Hi guys, welcome to my video channel. This is my first YouTube video, so you know, I've watched millions. Can't be that difficult, can it? The only thing is I haven't got any gear, so I am Mr. No gear, no idea. So this video is about well, it's an attempt to recreate something with a bit of history. This thing here, which is a lead plaque of a I'm assuming some kind of Greek goddess. I think it's a girl. This thing's got a bit of history. I'll tell you about that in a moment. It's very heavy, by the way. That is 4.7 kilos of lead, so that in itself is a bit of a problem. So what we're going to attempt to do is make a mould using some hard rubber or silicon rubber. We're going to make a two-part mould. It's high heat resistant, so I've tested that it works with lead, and it does. So we're going to try and recreate this in lead, and if it works, I'm going to try and sell them. So I grew up in the remains of an old, I suppose you'd call it a stately home in Essex. And when we moved in there in 1971, there was very little remaining of the gardens, and actually not that much of remaining of the house. And over the course of 20-30 years, my dad, Brian, who's no longer with us, he refurbished the house and set about revamping the gardens, which was really his true passion. He wasn't interested in houses, he was interested in gardens. Now the gardens were quite historic. They were the home of the Countess of Warwick, and she was a socialite in Victorian and early Edwardian times. In fact, Edward VII was one of her friends, in inverted commas, and he used to visit the house quite a lot, so it's very, very likely that he rubbed the nose of this very, very worn lead figure. Okay, so where does this figure come from? It comes from the Italian gardens in the aforementioned house, and during the course of restoring the gardens in about 1990, I suppose it was, early 90s, the Italian gardens, I'm going to show you a picture. Okay, so this is the Italian gardens. You can see the house in the background. Most of that was gone by the time we arrived in the 70s. In fact, all of that bit was gone. The balustraded pool is to the right of that photograph. This is the steps up to the main house, again from the pool, which you can see in the foreground. And then finally, this is the actual gardens as they are now, and the urn, as I understand it, would have stood at, well, I think that we believe there were two lead tanks or urns at each end of the pool. And at some point, our friend the goddess was levered off the urn and chucked into that water there, and lay there for 70 years. Those hopefully in the video now. So during the course of that restoration, the pools were drained. So yes, in the early 90s, the Italian pool, or the Italian gardens, the pool was drained. Bear in mind, when we were kids, it was all fully overgrown, and it was just basically our playground. If you look at the pictures, hopefully, which I'll show you in a moment, you'll see that there's a balustraded pool, not very deep, probably a foot or so, and for our entire childhood, so 30 odd years, it was full up with slush and sludge. What's the word I'm looking for? Silt. That's what I'm looking for. Anyway, when it was drained, we found quite a lot of stuff in the bottom of the pool, including a load of Victorian coins, Edwardian coins, and this thing, which is one of the lead plaques that was originally on a couple of urns that were at each end of the balustraded pool, and they were also made of lead. I'm guessing that this was prized off after the house was in a derelict state, all of the lead and stonework was sold off or stolen. But I think this was probably removed sometime during the Second World War, when the house was, well, initially it was the American Air Force, then the RAF, and then the Army. All did a spell there. I think it might be actually Air Force first, then the American Air Force. Anyway, so I'm guessing some soldier prized this off and chucked it into the pond to break the ice, which is the sort of thing we did when we were kids. Yeah, and it lay there for 70 odd years until the early 90s, when it was discovered. So my dad sold the property, I don't know, 10 years ago, and I kind of inherited this. And yeah, I've been thinking about making a mould out of it, making a replica of it for 20 years. And now that we're in lockdown, I thought it'd be a really good idea to try and do some of these things that I've been trying to do for ages. Of course, nobody else has thought of doing a lockdown video, so there you go, there's a first for you. Okay, so we're ready to start making the second half of the mould. This is the lady. She's made of lead, and we are going to pour this high temperature moulding rubber, once we've mixed it up, on the top there to create a mould that we can then pour our lead into. So I've invested in some of this quick release agent. You can apparently use Vaseline, but I didn't have any of that, so I thought I'd spend some money and use the proper stuff. And we are going to apply that to the mould around the edges and also onto the face of the lead lady. Hopefully that will allow us to release the mould nice and easily. We will see. I've not used it before, so we'll see how we get on. So next stage is just to level up this mould and start mixing the plastic or the silicone. That's an old mixer which I'm going to use to do the mixing. Back in a mo. Okay, so I've used a hoover to remove any dust or dirt from the mould. Hopefully we should get a nice clean relief mould from that. I've also borrowed a jug from the kitchen and the kitchen scales. I'm going to use this to make sure that I've got a 50-50 mix on my plastics, which is what this one uses. It should be nice and easy hopefully. Okay, let's give it a go. Okay, so this is the part B. We're going to go for 250 grams or thereabouts. Hopefully. Oops, bit of focus. It's not easy stuff to pour because it has a long tail. Okay, that's near enough. And part B will be coming up shortly. Okay, so this is the other part. We're going for another 250 if we can get that. This one's slightly thinner, so hopefully it should be a bit easier to pour. And that is close enough. Excellent. I'm just going to quickly spray the mould, mix it up, and away we go. We have about 6 minutes. Okay, so it turns out the spray wasn't a spray and was actually just a bottle. So I've had to use my trusty brush. I've given it a good coating of the wax, and I have mixed up the mixture, the resin or rubber, and I'm now about to try and pour it. This should be fun. I seem to have quite a lot of air in there, which maybe because I used the mixer probably would have been better if I didn't. So I'm going to cover the whole face of the mould, and then if we need to we can top up again later, because this rubber will stick to itself quite nicely. But being a bit of a tight arse, I didn't want to use too much, and obviously I haven't used enough, but that's okay, because at least I know how much I need to use. can still see her face there. Sorry, I'm not focusing. I'm not very good at multitasking. You can see we've got quite a few air bubbles in there. In an ideal world we would have a vacuum chamber and suck those out, but the world's not ideal, so here we go. Okay, I'm going to finish doing this and then I will come back to you. Okay, so my mould is now cured. I'm actually going to leave it a little bit longer before I separate it, but I just wanted to show you one of the beauties of this rubber stuff. It is expensive, but look at this. I can shave it with a scalpel and basically carve and peel away the bits. Oh, you can't see that. I'm rubbish at this. So the beauty of it is it's very, very easy to cut with this very sharp scalpel blade. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, it's very hard to do this with a phone and a knife in one hand. But it allows you to make adjustments to your mould that you need to do, like so. So tomorrow morning we're going to separate this mould and see what we got. Cool. Okay, so we're going to try and let me just check that's lined up. Yep, that looks okay. Right, so we're going to try and separate this mould now. Now, this is a two-part mould made from plywood. I should, with a bit of luck, be able to tap that apart. If I can get it the right way around. It should just come apart. But obviously I can't remember which way round it was. Right, I can work it out though because I've got the screws there, so that must be there. Okay. Okay, I'm going to use a little bit of a knife here just to make sure that I've got that clear. And also at this end here. There we go. I don't know if you can see that, but that is our mould, and the lead lady is inside there somewhere. Hopefully we'll be able to see her again soon. Got a bit of a leakage there on the side. Now, I don't know how easy it's going to be to split this mould. I'm hoping, oh, there's the crack, that's good. Just work it all the way around. I hope you can see that. I suppose I better get myself a decent camera at some point. There we go. I'm just working that through. I really do hope it comes apart cleanly, otherwise it's going to cost me another 25 quid. Don't want that, do I? Not in these weird times. There you go. How cool is that going to be? Okay, so a bit more mould cleanup. There's my lady. I should be able to take this out. Well, I know this comes out because I've had this out a few times. Oh dear. Okay, so these are going to be my filler holes at some point. There she is. I say she, but I suppose it could be a bloke. I don't know. If you're American, a bloke is a man. Okay, so we should be able to fit this mould together again. That is the mould ready to take some lead. How cool. is that. And as I was saying about how good this stuff is, how easy it is just to slice through with a decent knife. This is a scalpel. Used to be a surgeon, tree surgeon. And there we go. That is ready for action. Sorry that you can't see much of this, but you get the idea. I'm just tidying it up for no other reason than I really do like cutting this stuff. How cool is that? When I actually do the casting, I will put this back in between the wood bracing, just so that I know that it keeps its shape. There we go. We are happy. One more look at the lady or the man. Hopefully this will last, well, a few castings, which we'll see. There we go. Excellent. Okay, so I realised that the amount of lead that I was going to be using was about 4.5 kilos, which is a bit of a problem because I'm going to be sending these things out, and also that's a lot of lead. So what I've done is cut a section out here of the mould, and if I can flip it open, you'll see I've raised a section which hopefully will save me, well, I don't know, half a kilo, maybe a kilo of lead. Anyway, that's the plan. There's going to be a little bit of leakage around the edges, but that will just become fine lead which I can just scrape off. See how it goes. Okay, so our lead has arrived, and we're now going to see if we can melt some lead and try our mould out for the first time. So I'm using a fire lighter because I haven't got time for messing around with paper. Believe it or not, that pile of sticks there is enough to melt our lead. So I really do need to get a tripod. Once this is going, we'll stick the pan on with the lead in, and we will be ready to rock and roll. The mould is currently in the oven warming up, because we do not want to be pouring lead into a wet mould or even a cold mould. Okay, come back to that when it's going. Okay, this is our lead. There's probably about 3 and a bit kilos there. Hopefully that's going to be enough. It may not quite be, but should be enough to get a good test pour. Fire's coming along nicely. Be going on shortly. So here's my safety equipment. A pair of gloves, probably won't be good enough. A mould, or a mould base, a pair of goggles, and lead, which you've seen. Fire. Okay, so my lead is coming up to temperature, not quite started to melt. I'll come back to you when it is. My mould is all heated up and ready to pour. I'm going to attempt to pour into that hole. This could be fun. Okay, so my lead is ready to pour. Just going to put on my safety gloves. Sorry about that, it's a bit of grass. I'm going to attempt to pour this live on camera. This could be me filming my own demise. I hope not. Here we go. God, that is heavy. Well, it's pouring in quite nicely. So far so good. A lot of wastage. I need a better pouring method. But let's hope we've got enough. Not far off enough. Starting to come out the other sides, maybe. I think we probably are close, but not close enough. So I don't know if you can see that. There is lead there. I think we're just shy of the edges, but that's enough for a good test. Okay, we're going to walk the dog. Okay, here we go for the big reveal. Take the back off first. Seems to be... looks like we haven't quite got enough lead in there, as suspected. Oh, it's still very hot. It's been here an hour and it's still very, very hot. Okay, let's try flipping it over. Gonna put the phone down. Okay, so that's not brilliant because we've got some mould, some silicon come apart in there. Oh dear. Apart from that, looks alright. I don't think the mould has actually melted. I think it's just where it wasn't properly mixed. Okay, thanks for watching my first ever video. This is, I think they call this the outro. I don't know. I'll get to know the terminology eventually. So we've successfully done a lead pour. It's got a few issues. One of those is that the amount of the mould that I pushed through to try and reduce the lead content was just too much, and it basically ruined the finished product. Also, I've realised that either my lead wasn't hot enough or my mould wasn't hot enough, so I was getting a layering effect on the lead, which isn't good. Certainly not good enough to sell it if I ever do that. Yeah, so on the next video, I am going to heat up the mould hotter to try and alleviate that, and also take the lead up a bit, another 10 degrees or so it doesn't have time to cool down as the rest of the lead is coming in, because I think that's what's causing the layering. The only problem is I don't have a thermometer. I need one of these infrared things, so I can't actually test the temperature of the lead that I'm pouring. So what I'm going to do is try and take it, melt it, give it a minute, pour it. Hopefully that'll work. If that doesn't work, I'll give it 2 minutes, pour it, and until we find the optimum. Or I could buy an infrared thermometer, but as I'm a bit of a tight ass, I don't want to do that. I also can't take the temperature up too high or it'll melt the mould. I don't exactly know what the melting temperature of the silicone rubber is, but it's not that far above lead, so I've got to be a bit careful. So that's the next video. As always, like, subscribe, click on the bell. Also, all the products that I've used in the video will be linked down below. There you go. Thanks a lot for watching.